Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello to you and welcome back to the channel where you join me on a beautiful day in Spain, where today I'm with BMW M at the Ascari circuit to discover the new M2 Competition. We're going to take a full in-depth look at this car, drive it on both the track here as well as a scenic drive out on the roads. I'll show you all around the car, talk about the changes, the new aspects, the new engine and the likes, and then when we get back later on we'll check out the interior too. So let's get started and completely cover the new M2 Competition. By way of an introduction, let's take a quick walk around because my time to drive the car on circuit is already beckoning. Afterwards, we can run over absolutely everything in more detail. The M2 Competition is the first model from BMW M that features the new competition designation. Previously, M high performance models had an optional competition package. Now we have the competition itself that sits above those, but still beneath the CS, for example, of the M3 and M4 CS models. The biggest difference with the M2 Competition that now replaces the discontinued regular M2 is that it features the S55 engine that's been found previously in the M3 and M4. That's the 3-litre inline-6 twin-power turbo, now making 410 horsepower and 550 newton-meters of torque, up from 370 and 500 respectively in the previous engine that the M2 had. Visually, there are a number of changes. For example, you'll spot that there's a new exhaust system to go with that engine, new wheels worn by this car, but the most dramatic changes are if we come back round towards the front. It has the headlights that came with the mid-life cycle update to the M2, the new look dual kidney grills that are connected in the centre, and visually down at the bottom you'll notice a new aerodynamic style, also allowing 20% more airflow through to the car. On the inside there are new M Sport seats. These cars have the 6-speed manual, but it's also available with the 7-speed DCT. We'll run over some of the performance figures later on, but I think for the moment it's time to get myself out to track to experience what this car is going to be like before we come back later on to go over all of this in more detail. Looks like things are set. We've got Ascari circuit beckoning. We've got the BMW M2 Competition prepared and ready. Let's jump in, get things set up and go see what it's like out on the racetrack. Alrighty then, it is track time, and needless to say, I am very excited about seeing what the M2 Competition is going to be like. We'll be following the pace car, but sat in the new M Sport seats. We've got the M seat belts. Let's get the engine started up. Hear this for a moment. There we go. So this is actually in quiet, efficient mode. We've got sport steering set at the moment. We've got M1 configured for Sport Plus on the powertrain, but comfort on the steering, so we can independently control that. There we go. We've got sport set. M2, we'll go into that later on, puts it into MDM mode and basically lets the back go out a little bit. But this car, 6-speed manual gearbox, we'll get set, get ready, and I think in a moment we'll head out onto track. And here we go then, back into M1, Sport Plus powertrain, sport steering I've got set. Get used to the manual gearbox, obviously left-hand drive, a little unusual for me. Around we go then, it's time to see what this is all about. And while we're building up the pace, a few things I particularly like. The display, it's very, very clear. Already, even without turning traction into the sportier setting, I'm feeling the back playing around. You've got very comfortable seats, good bolstering on the sides to hold you into place. The shift knob is great, not necessarily the shortest shifter, but you've got a good feel for it. The front end, like I said before, just turns in and gives you remarkable feedback. So we blast away here, following Joel Eriksson, BMW's Works DTM driver. He knows a thing or two, and maybe he'll show us that later on, but here we go. Just opening it up a little bit, firm on the brakes, a bit squirmy under braking, not going to lie. Feels like there could be slightly more control of balance there. Traction just coming in right now. I'm throttling back the fun ever so slightly, but in a second I'm going to pop it up into M2 when I'm on the straight, using the new steering wheel toggles. There we go, one press and one to confirm because of the traction change. We'll get more of a feel. Yeah, already it's a little bit squirmy here, under braking there. There we go, get a feel for it. This is so much fun. I absolutely love it. There we go, auto blipping. We've got a great corner here. Let's give it a little bit too much power, see what happens. How goes the back? Yes, that's what I'm talking about. The M Smile, just pure fun. Not necessarily the craziest speed right now, just having an entertaining, enjoyable ride with good feedback from the car. This is what I hoped the M2 Competition was going to be. It's been a long time since I drove the regular M2, but this is feeling very, very, very controlled. Oh, nearly missed my shift there. Not necessarily the best. So just duck it in, lots of torque in third gear, through the chicanes, watching the back. Don't want to give it too much power too early, but you can feel that balance. Fantastic levels of control. Didn't necessarily need to go down second gear there, but it just gives us a little bit of power and play on the exit, which is even more fun. Up to third. Oh, it throttled me back due to the shift in the corner. It is a boiling day today, but this is super, super sticky to the ground. It feels so good. The control of this car is just entertaining. It's magical. Foot flat, 410 horsepower, 550 newton meters, small lift for this corner. Take the bump out to the exit curbs and away we go. 110, 120 almost kilometers an hour here. Up into fifth gear, taking the corner fast. Heavy braking zone. You can see the car just squirms around a lot under braking. It's massive new brakes in this car. The front brakes are development from the F10 M5, the previous gen. The rear brakes are development from the E92 M3. But you can feel those. Woo! This is an on-the-edge, exciting experience, which is what an M car like this should be. I love it! And it's time to cool the car down and probably have a little bit of fun in the way we do it. But gathering thoughts, I'm absolutely boiling in here. A bit of a workout, manual gearbox and all that. But what an experience! What an exciting car to drive! Hey! He's having fun. Can't blame him, right? The way it revs up is brilliant. Lots and lots of power. Woohoo! That's what you can do if you turn traction fully off. He has got it! Oh, well, he's nailing it better than I was. Look at that! Look at that! It's just burning up those rear tyres. Nice. Around the corner we go. Clearly, the M2 is a bit of a fun machine if you do it in that style. Right, my turn to try. Woohoo! That is just awesome to watch. Absolutely brilliant. What a way to finish the lap. What a way to do it. Honestly, I have had the best time in the M2 competition. Just the track laps, I'm absolutely sweltering. But what an awesome experience. Brilliant, brilliant track car. A lot of fun. And there we are. So let's have a proper look around the car before it's time to go for the road drive. My first drive of the car has gone very well, and shortly it's going to be time to take the one that's behind me for a drive on the local roads to Ascari to experience what it's like in a more day-to-day driving environment. We'll go through the different driving modes, check out more of the interior as well. But before we do, let's take a walk around of this car to go into more detail, more in depth about the changes from the M2 to the Competition, but also just introduce the car more to you if you're not so familiar with it. So let's start off with the looks, the design and the aerodynamics, that side of things. Now the M2 and the M2 Competition of course are based on the BMW 2 Series. They have both been very much the more butched, beefed up versions, much wider arches as you can see, more aggressive styling. Take a look at the rear arches that house those wider profile wheels and tyres back there. It's very much a sports car. Now the M2 itself has recently been discontinued due to legislation reasons to do with the engine. That is why we find ourselves now with the Competition as the only, I guess, halo model of the 2 Series lineup that features the new S55. So BMW M market the car as M for more power, more braking, more performance, more of just about everything. Now the 2 Series and the M2 featured a life cycle update, the LCI life cycle impulse as BMW call it, shortly before the discontinuation of the M2, and we can see some of those changes to do with the headlights and the grille now in the competition as well. And I think starting off right down at the front, those include the headlights with a slightly new look to them, the adaptive lights that can block out objects coming towards you to not dazzle oncoming traffic. We've got the new, more edgy front grille. You'll notice the more aggressive styling, but also the way the dual kidney grills are connected together in the center, making it one single piece, finished in high gloss black that you have on this car, as is tradition, the M2 badge worn inside the kidney grille there as well. If we come down beneath that, at the bottom, you have these 3 distinctive parts which aren't actually aerodynamic. The overall aero of the front opens up 20%, allowing 20% more cooling to come through the front, but these house quite neatly if you have the M Performance Parts decal pack for the car, the different colours of the M stripe, as you have right here next to the badge. So those can be had down at the bottom. Otherwise, it's still quite, I guess, traditional to the M2 in terms of the shapes around the edge, allowing the cooling, allowing the airflow. You've got new wheels and brakes. So this car has the 788M style wheels in the black finish, which has this deep shine and gloss almost to them. And inside those, you have the Sports upgrade, the M Sports brake discs themselves, an upgraded package that gives you a lot more stopping power as well. Continuing further back, you have a new look to the side grille right there. You've got the traditional BMW M style mirrors that come back towards the A-pillar at the top. That's thanks to a lot of customer demand for that from the original M2. Continuing around the back, what do we have? A small lip spoiler on the rear boot lid, and then down at the bottom, of course, the new exhaust system to go along with the engine. So this is a big talking point, the sound that this car actually makes. You can actually see a rather ginormous muffler hanging out down at the bottom. Perhaps not the most, I think, sightly thing in the world. Normally that would be hidden, but otherwise you have some aggressive styling cues, new tail lights, and of course the M2 Competition badging designation there on the boot lid itself. So to come back round and take a look at the interior. In here, then, we are greeted by a very sporty finish. We have the new optional M Sport seats with the illumination badging that you can have for the M2 at the back of them. The steering wheel now features the M1 and M2 hotkey buttons on the left. This car is the 6-speed manual, as I mentioned. We've got the adaptive controls to change the driving experience. M2 Competition door sills right here, the kind of unlacquered carbon fibre finish that you have for the trim parts, and then this dashboard display. And I just want to step in to show you this quickly a little bit more, because it really gives the impression that what you're looking at is a digital dash, but actually it's an analog dash with illumination that gives that effect. It's very very clever, and it's caught me out before now. So that looks very, very nice, like I said, when I was driving. Inside, we've got the touchscreen interface up here that we can go through again in more detail later on, but I'd like to open up the engine bay, so let me just switch off the ignition for the moment and show you the engine and power plant in the M2 Competition. So let's come around here and lift this up, where we have the new S55 engine. It's housed underneath the carbon fibre brace at the top, but basically think of the car as having a new end to actually fit and house this engine. It's slightly heavier than before, but power numbers now up to 410 horsepower from 370 in the M2. Torque is up to 550, where the normal M2 had 450 with overboost up to 500. This is a twin power turbo, dual turbochargers. The M2 before just had a single turbo, so quite a different drive and setup and style, which has obviously meant new configuration required to get everything running. 0 to 62 miles an hour or 100 kilometers per hour in the manual is 4.4 seconds, in the DCT is 4.2 seconds. The top speed is limited to 250 kilometers per hour by default. That's 155 miles per hour, but with the M drivers package you can upgrade that to 280 at the very top end kilometers per hour. It was limited to 270 before now, so about a 20 mile per hour extra over 155 should you wish. Now this specific car, as we close back down the bonnet, is in Hockenheim Silver, which is a colour exclusive to the M2 Competition. A few colour options available for this car, also including Sunset Orange, which is a colour that's been seen on other BMW models but now introduced for the competition. This is a very, very nice metallic. It's silver, but you can see all sorts of different colours, almost some blues and some other things in it going on when it's in the sunshine, as we have here today. But I think it's time to jump back in and get set to take this for a drive to experience what it's like out on the roads. Now this is my kind of road, so let's put the powertrain into Sport Plus, the steering into Sport Plus, and a single press of the traction off to put it into MDM mode. We've got some smooth tarmac, some lovely switchbacks and turns, and I can feel the rear end of the car getting light there, but in a very controllable manner. The thing about this is it's fairly small as a car, you know, and that's what makes it, or allows it to be so nimble and pointy on a road like this. You can feel the back squirming away though, obviously with the heat, for tyres that aren't quite up to temperature because it's been a gentle drive up to this point. The rev matching's sounding awesome, but the steering gives you quite a lot of feedback driving like this. Yes, the sound is a little bit funny with the way it's piped in, but goes around a corner with remarkable balance and poise. And then you open up the taps and put your foot down, and it really goes very, very nicely as well. Brakes are good. You just feel like maybe it could be a touch more precise. I'm not quite sure how to explain that, but then you remember the price point. It's a lot of car for the money. There is absolutely no doubt about that. It's a usable level of power. I've always said in my videos that 400 horsepower is a kind of number, I mean 410 in this case, but 10 horsepower is no odds either way. It's the kind of power, as we just squeeze past that truck, that allows you to play with it, woohoo, like that, without getting into silly territory. You don't have to be going Mach 10 to enjoy the car. You can get up towards the red line, drive it as we're doing right now, but not find yourself doing anything too stupid in the meantime, which is always quite important in these kind of things. In any case though, this car on this road, right place to bring it for a launch and a test drive, that's for sure. This is absolutely ideal to discover and enjoy the M2 Competition, to squirm it around some of the corners and get a feel for what it's capable of without doing anything crazy. I'm enjoying just going backwards and forwards between second and third gear, going light over the crest, which just feels like it's set up for exactly this, for road speed driving, for a little bit of shifting, but you can keep it in third if you needed to. You don't need to go backwards and forwards between the gears. There's plenty of torque when you're further up through them. Lots of talk about the sound, but let's just, now that I'm pulled over, give it a couple of revs so you can hear what it exactly sounds like from the outside. I'd say it's okay. It's not the best, but one of the strange things are those pops and burbles that you don't actually hear really inside the car. You get the faintest sensation of them, but not too much. Anyway, like I said, we were heading back towards base. We've got some slightly bumpier terrain now, and this is where we lose out by not having adaptive suspension. It's not an option on the M2. You can't configure it at all. That's saved for the more premium body styles, the M3, the M4, the M5. But even here, such a small, nimble car, it's so easy to position, and it drives over this ground, to be honest, not too bad. It's not too rough and uncomfortable. It's just a car that you can use for every purpose with ease, gently driving, aggressively driving, track driving where it's an absolute hoot. I'm enjoying the rev blipping automatically. With this engine, perhaps it's not quite as lively as it might be with some other vehicles. That's one thing I guess I've noticed. I haven't driven the M2 for a long time, so it's hard for me to make a direct comparison with what that was like. I enjoyed the M2, but I wouldn't say it set my heart racing, where this car on some of the roads we've been driving definitely has. That just small increase in performance and power has made a huge difference. When you do accelerate away, I quite like this engine, you know. I had an M4 for a while, which was, of course, this engine with a little bit more power. This is slightly detuned, but I'm enjoying driving with it, honestly. It's not disappointing as I feared it could have been. Many people were suggesting that it just wasn't going to be suited to the car, but it's okay. I like it. It will do. So let's head on back now towards base to Ascari to give you more of a run through of the interior and what's going on inside this car. Here we are then, back to base. So let me show you more around the interior, and I've just realized it is really cool with that M sculpture right behind me over my shoulder. Anyway, the inside of the M2 Competition, and please do excuse the air conditioning. As you can see, it is very, very warm right now, and that temperature does not necessarily agree with me. Anyway, what we have here then, let's start with the steering wheel. We've got our cruise control functions on the left, the M1 and M2 buttons, some volume and media controls over to the right. There isn't too much you can change in terms of the dashboard and display. You get a little bit of information on the board computer down at the bottom, which you can cycle through just to see a few different screens and displays, but to be honest, not all that much information there. The date, temperatures, a few small bits and bobs, but basically you have this digital style, and it's really, really trick and clever however they've managed to actually do that. So you have your lights and wipers, the usual stalks either side of the steering wheel. Over to the driver's door, you've got your mirror controls, your power fold mirrors, the M-style mirrors. They do look really cool with that part up towards the top that isn't quite connected. Window controls, mirror pointing controls. You've got some good storage buckets divided up here for the console, depending, drinks bottles and things fitting in there easily, and then you've got your light controls there. Now this car has the manual seats, so you raise and lower, do the seat back, and there's a lever underneath to do the seat forwards and backwards. You can also get the M Sport seat with an electronic version, which is what the car that I drove on the track had as well. Now one of the things I would have been most intrigued to experience would have been the 7-speed DCT, but unfortunately not available to drive today, but the manual has been awesome. To the left of the gear stick is where you have your controls for adapting things. You know, that's the missing suspension button, so to speak, that you'd find in the M3 and M4, but that's your steering, your powertrain, your traction for the various different modes, and to the right you have your Idrive controller to control up here the Idrive screen and system. Beneath that you have a couple of things, you know, your media controls and your climate control and air conditioning, but this is now a touchscreen. It didn't used to be in the first gen. But you can imagine you have all the usual things in here that you'd expect to find. Jump back to home, go into vehicle, where you can configure what the M-Drive modes, how they're set up, and adjust them to be exactly to your requirements and demands. This all works, to be honest, fairly swiftly and easily. It's nicely set up and responsive. So we've got this carbon fibre style trim, which is basically carbon without lacquer on top of it, so you have a 3D effect to it, which is kind of cool, quite unique to have that. The car can be spec'd with blue stitching on the seats or with orange stitching. Those are the only options, which actually make it quite difficult when it comes to exterior colours, because you can't change it to match every single configuration. You have to go with one of those two, and there aren't really any further options available for this car. The armrest right here, does this open up? There we go, pops open. Some rubber mats inside to hold your devices in place, and a USB port as well with the handbrake lever just in front of it. So that's more or less the interior of the M2 Competition. Not necessarily too much to show you. Let's just hit the red stop button to switch the car off. Just jump out to have another last look around it. I think actually just quickly show you the rear of the car. Two seats back here. The manual seats obviously sliding forwards with a push. Not the most space in the world. You've got a storage in the centre, taking away a third seat, and you can see with that seat in that position there's not a whole lot of room behind, but you would fit people in for a short journey, or some small people in the back if you needed to do so. So this paint colour does look really good in this light, I'm not gonna lie. It gives you a completely different impression depending on the light you see it. Indoors it's a much more natural silver, whereas here it's almost leaning towards grey. So we come and open up the boot back here. Decent amount of storage space, extending back in. Seats fold down if you need them to, but you'll get a decent amount of things back there if you want to use it for practical purposes. Awkward to close that. I'm having to reach over the top. I think these wheels look really good with the multi-spokes. The brakes, as I've experienced, are quite squirmy. That's one of the things I found about the car, really pushing on. You're kind of moving all around, floating a little bit when you come to a sudden stop, but outside of that, it's pure smiles and fun and entertainment, and that's what's really struck me driving the M2 Competition today, out here on Ascari and then on the mountain passes and local roads. So an awesome amount of fun. I hope you've enjoyed this first drive and full in-depth look at the new M2 Competition from BMW M. I've certainly had a wonderful day, so thank you very much as always for watching, guys. I appreciate your support. That is it for this time though. I will catch up with you again very soon. Cheers.